Hello everyone, this is Lolly. Welcome back. We're going to do another version of this craft tote that I designed. This craft tote was designed after a real craft tote that I have that's like a cloth or canvas one. The first video I showed you how to construct it. I gave you the pattern, and the second video we decorated it. Now we're going to make it a little more complicated. This one was a very basic structure, and so I did it so that you would get the hang of making this and not feel so intimidated. So what I want now is to make it a little more sturdy and reinforced and show you some options that you can do. I have my patterns in a folder. It might be good for you to go ahead and print yours out and use them that way. These are the patterns for the first version. It's 1, 2, 3 patterns. And now for this one, we're going to have the same one for the craft tote, but a different one for the front and back pockets, different one for the side pockets, and an option for the side pockets. So you can do either one of these side pockets. I've also added arrows so that if you have a pattern, directional pattern on your cardstock, you will know how to lay that out when you go to do your scoring. So same as before on the handle, and this is what I'm using this time, by the way. I'm using this paper which has llamas on it, and this is going to be my handle. I'm going to do that in one color, and then the pockets and everything in the other color. On the handles, turn it over backwards. This is going to be the color on the inside. You're going to score this at 6 inch on both of these here. Okay, so we're going to get that done. We'll come back to this stash later. These are 7 3/8 inches by 5. We scored it at 6. These get folded outward like this. And we're going to glue these back to back. I do advise you to get these folded first so that you don't get those confused. I switched my tip, so it's not the super fine tip on the Barely Art glue. You see it comes out rather fast, so you need to be careful not to get too crazy when you're gluing that. But I need the glue to come out faster because I don't need that super fine point anymore. Now this glue does tend to firm up a lot faster than some glues. It doesn't give you as much wiggle room. So if you're doing big 3D projects, sometimes it's a little hairy to get them done in time. Okay, and then we're going to round our corners, and I'm going to use the 1/2 inch side on my corner chomper. It's great because it goes through several layers of cardstock at once. Now, what we did to make the hole at the top last time, we used this little 1/2 inch punch. I'm just putting my thumb there, and then I'm putting this punch up against my thumb and as far in as it will go, and I'm punching. And same thing on this side. So we're just making this as easy as possible without too much measuring. Then we take our craft blade. This is a lot easier if you don't assemble the box. If you go ahead and do this now before you assemble the box, because it's really hard to get your craft blade in there once you've assembled the box. I'm going to line these up and cut right between those two. And this side. Okay, so now we have our hole. If you would like to make a hole reinforcer on there, cut yourself a strip of paper or cardstock that is 3 1/4 by 1 inch, and so it would look like this. Now what you can do, it's really hard to center this, but what you can see this is something else. What you can do is put it over a light table or up to your window where the sun is shining in, and then you're going to see through there so that you can center it. And once you get that, trace that. And that's going to tell you where to punch the next one. And then all you have to do is cut right between those. You can use the razor again if you would like. I think that's going to be easier for me to do. There you go. And now here's where you just clean it up if you don't feel like it's even. And then I really want mine to be rounded around the edges. I had you make this extra long on purpose because everyone's thumbs are a different size. So I'm just going to come around and trim basically equal distance around the little rounded area here. So if you like the look of the whole reinforcer, there you go right there. Okay, I have a little bit of trimming to do here. And you just glue that on there. And you could do one, oops, you could do one for each side. But for the sake of convenience with this video, we're just going to do it on one side. So we have our handle right there. Next, we're going to go on to the front and back pockets. So if you look at your pattern, it's this one here. It says Craft Tote 2 front and back pockets. The original pattern just says Craft Tote. So front and back pockets, cut 2 of them at 9 by 6 inches. So I'll show you about scoring that. So on the long side, with your pretty side forward, you're going to score the long side at 1/2, 2, 7, and at 8.5. You're going to rotate it to the left or counterclockwise, score it 1/2 and at 4.5, and you're going to do that for both. Now here's where the pattern comes in handy, is it's going to show you where to cut. So all the dotted lines are scoring and the solid lines are cutting, and I know we have glare on that, so let's see if we can improve that any. So you can see where we're supposed to cut wherever there's a solid line. So here, I'm going to turn this around, and here we're cutting the whole square out, and at the bottom we're going to cut in, and this one here. I'm going to repeat that on this side. I just cut that. You could turn your whole thing around in the direction that your paper is aiming so you don't get confused. Now we're going to cut in, and we're going to cut straight down. Now I like to pretty this up by putting a little bit of an angle on these. Tiny little angles on the top. Now we're going to do all of our burnishing on that. So you don't have to worry about which way to fold on all the score lines. Everything gets turned away from the pretty pattern. Now the first thing I want to do, and what is different about this pattern, is this top lip. That is giving us a nice pretty edge on the top so that it's a reinforcement. So this was just the raw paper edge on this one, and now this one is going to have this. It's going to have this really pretty folded edge there. Now it has a much nicer look to it, like that. And now you see why we cut the slits in here, was so that the paper would fold down inside. And now we're going to do the same thing we did to the other one, is that we're going to take this and we're going to glue this. This is the bottom flap. We're going to glue the bottom flap there and glue the whole box or pattern up like this. And it's going to be so cute. So we're going to glue this bottom, making sure we center that. Now, one of the nice things about using the other side of the paper for this is that when you glue it in, the little side corners, panels here, these flaps are going to be matching this, whereas on this one, the inside of the paper, that little flap right in there is a different color than this. So it's just a little noticeable, but you won't have that issue on this. So now we have these two are going to go in like this, and they are going to get glued to the sides right here like that. Make sure that's squared off. Make sure it's squared off. And now these two front flaps are going to get glued and lean up against this. Could have done one side at a time. Always make sure you've got all your corners are squared off. It's easy when gluing this to actually be pulling the pocket toward the top of the handle, and then it will make the box cattywampus. I'm sure you know what cattywampus is. Crooked. Just sticking my hand in there and making sure I've got that glued well. So that is how you assemble the one pocket. So we're going to do this one off camera because I already showed you how to do this on my other video. So that is all set up. It's nice and square. The next thing I want to do, I have two versions of the side pocket I'm going to show you. So the first one is the same pocket we had before, but with creating that little lip that's going to go down just like these have, as you can see down inside there. And the second one is going to be a pocket with a magnetized flap over it. Don't panic. If you don't want to use magnets, you can always use Velcro. So this is the pattern right here. And I think because of the glare, I'm going to take it out of my page protector so that you can see it. So what we have is a 5.5 by 4 3/4 cardstock. And again, I put the arrow here so that you can see what direction your pattern will go. So with the long side here, the 5.5 side, you're going to score it at half, 1 1/4, 4 1/4, and at 5. Rotate it to the left or counterclockwise. And on the short side or the 4 3/4 side, we're going to score it half, 3 1/2, and 4 1/4. And then now you will see on this where we're going to cut. And so again, all the solid lines are going to be cut. So if you get lost, turn this paper to match the direction of this paper. So you see these two here and this one, we're going to cut this vertical one. And then these two side ones. Okay, same thing here, the vertical one. And here's what I mean about turning this with it. If you get lost, just turn the paper with it. And now you can see which ones to cut here. Turn this, and you can see what we've got going on here. Okay, now the only other thing I need to do is to clean up all these edges like we've done before. We want to make sure that these fold in well when we go to fold. Alrighty, so now we're going to do our burnishing. And like the other pockets, all of the edges, all of the score lines are being folded away from the pretty design here. Okay, now see how with this vertical, these are the top flaps, and so they are getting folded down all the way. Okay, now on this, the very bottom here, these two side flaps are going to get glued into the next side flaps like this. And then it's going to go up. Once you put this up, you can fold these in, glue all that together, and then all you have to do is glue this panel here onto the side like that, making sure that it lines all the way up to the bottom and the sides here. And that's going to give you that beautiful edge right there all folded in. The other thing though I want to show you is, and you can see this again by rewatching that segment or rewatching the first video, this is the magnetized one. So let's get that out. You can see it's considerably longer. So with it vertically like this, your pattern's lined up, you got your short side up here. These are 5.5 by 9 with the 5.5 side up there. you're going to score about half, 1 1/4, 4 1/4, and 5. Rotate it counterclockwise or to the left. On the long side, which is the 9-inch side, 1/4, 3 1/4, 4, 7, 7 3/4, and 8 3/4. Now on this, it's still going to have a lip on it like the other ones have had, but these are a 1/2 inch lip here, 1/2 inch lip. I gave this a 1/4 inch lip just because of needing room for the magnets. So again, you can see where we're going to cut. I'm going to turn this around and look at the top area. Use that arrow. And this. Now I'm going to turn it this way so I can see what I'm doing. These go up to the second fold line. Now look at this all the way. Let's turn that. Now you can see these 2 lines. And we already did that top, so that is how it's going to look like. And again, we need to go through and just kind of trim it up so that these will be nice and neat once they're folded. Now the way this gets done, again, all of these are getting folded away from you, away from the pretty pattern. Here's what it's going to look like. Look at the front, okay. This is your front panel. This comes up around. This is the bottom, this is the back, this is the top, and this is the front flap. These side pieces here we can work on in a minute, but it's important to get it oriented in your mind because we're going to go ahead and apply the magnets now. It makes it a lot easier. After we fold these in, we'll get those magnets done. This is such a small area, this 1/4 inch flap, that I'm giving it a little extra time here. And the flap on this end too. It's like I got marker on my nails. Now what you can do with this, as square as you can get it, let's just fold these sides in to help us out. Bring this down. And you can see how this is going to kind of look like a bandage box. So what I want to do is poke a hole so that I know where I'm going to put my magnets. I think that will make all the measuring, it'll make it all easier later. So if this flap is 3 inches, make sure it's all squared up. I'm going to find the 1 1/2 mark. Right there. I can go a little bit below there with the box squared up. I'm going to poke that hole in here. It's too hard to go through all the layers, but what I can do is unfold this one. There we go. So I can put my hand inside there. Now I poke the hole through both sides. I know exactly where the magnet's going to go. If you're going to do Velcro, you could still poke the hole. Just then glue your Velcro here and here. Now I have these 2 tiny magnets. They are super slim. So what I'm going to do is to take this super strong tape here. And see, these magnets are happy together. You know what I mean? Is that they have found their sweet spot. I'm going to put a little X on the outsides of these so that I know what are the sides that are not meeting. So I know by looking at this that I can glue right here. I find it easier to slide the magnets apart like this rather than try to peel them apart. I'm going to put double-sided sticky tape. And I'm going to peel that off. And this is red line tape. It's stronger than your normal tape. And I'm going to take that and glue it to the back side of that hole I just made. I'm trying to center it as well as possible. Okay, now the other thing I need to do is to cover that up, not for beauty's sake, but for security's sake, I could have put the magnet here and then put something on top, which I had that hole there, so I'm going to put a little decoration there anyway. But I want to put something here, and if you remember, we've been cutting off all of these little pieces here and there, so any one of these will work over there to cover that up, just like that. So I'm going to put more tape. This will help it to be really secure. And I think I'm going to use a larger one of these instead of this really short one. I have to think about what color I want up. I think I'm going to go with this. I'm just going to round the corners a little bit. Now this is going to go on there, but I also want to add glue around it. Not where the red line tape will be, but around it, so I can glue paper to paper. And just give that a squish. Now we have the other magnet. And remember, this side is the side that's not going to go toward the magnet, toward this magnet. So it means it's going to be like this in my paper. And again, I could put it here and cover it up, or I could put it underneath, which is what I really want to do. I have used permanent adhesives such as E6000 and Power Attack on magnets. They take longer to set up, which obviously is an issue. And I'm going to put this on the back of that hole that I have there. And I want to cover this up, and it won't matter. You won't see it. So it doesn't really matter here. But the reason I'm covering it is that when you are putting anything into the pocket, I don't want it catching on the magnet. So this will help to protect that magnet. Oops, I forgot to put the double-sided tape on the back of the magnet. I put the tape on the magnet facing this, but I didn't put it on the other side for my little patch there. So I will go ahead and leave it like that. Now all we need to do is assemble this. So I didn't need to actually score this line here. It doesn't really matter. I could even remove that if I wished. So those sides will get folded up inside like this, and I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to make sure that I have this really squared up when I glue that. And same on this one. Make sure that's really squared up. Just going to hold that a little bit. Now these ones are going to get folded in, and this will be glued to it. So this will be actually a solid pocket, whereas this one is actually hollow on the back. When you stick it, you could make this solid and glue it on. And the beauty of this is you see the inside color here. Okay. And again, Velcro might be easier for you to use than magnets. Squaring those up. Just pushing those flaps down so they really adhere well. Now you see that magnet finds its mate, and we just glue that right here on this whole thing. You could use some double-sided tape to assist you here if you wish. I'm pushing it down on my craft table so that it's flat up against. I'm double checking here, making sure it's nice and squared up. And so I'm going to do that again. For this side, I'm going to do both sides magnetized instead of just one side magnetized. Now, because, as I mentioned, I didn't put the magnet on the outside, I have the itty-bitty hole there. The only reason I did the hole was because that enables me to get it through both layers and see where the magnet goes on the inside. So one thing that you could do to assist this as well would be to make a tab. Let's assume that you have a smaller tab like this. I'll give you an example. Let's assume you have this tab like this. Instead of gluing this piece here, you could glue a tab over the magnet and like this, and it gives you a little flap to hold on to when you're opening it. Isn't that cute? And so you can do anything you want for this little teeny thing. There were strips on the ends of my papers. I could use that on the pocket. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I had considered using a button, but I think I'm going to use that little strip here. Could also use the plaid. You could also round these corners if you wish. I am going to cut and score the other pocket and then assemble that off camera. Okay, so this one is done as well. So I'm going to glue that one on here the same way. Actually, let's put that little strip on there first. I think that would be easier for me. Okay, now all I have to do is glue this on the box. I'm going to get a little extra on the bottom. Now, the purpose of me showing you this extra style of doing your tote was to make it more sturdy. So there is one more thing that I think we can do to give it some extra strength. And for things like this, I just write notes on the backs of my instructions here. And I figured that I could put a bottom panel on there that's 6.5 by 3 inches. And see how that would just give it some more stability if I were to do that? So we've got this panel. It's 6.5 by 3. I'm just looking to make sure I don't want to trim any of it down, because you will notice that, because we are imperfect when we craft, things won't line up just perfectly. And this one looks just fine. So let's go ahead and glue that to our bottom. It gives it a nice finished look and it adds stability to the whole project. So underneath this video, I always put my supplies under the video, which means there's an area under the title that you need to click to expand to see the rest of it. And that is what we call the video description box. And that's where you're going to find the supply list. That's where you're going to find your patterns. And if I were you, I would print out both sets of patterns, tote number 1 and tote number 2. And you can put them in a notebook like I just did so that you won't lose them when you need them. You can always come back and re-watch the part of this video that you need. And I'm going to put timestamps under the video in that same video description box. So that timestamp will tell you, for instance, if you only need to go back and see how to put a magnet in, you'll know exactly where to go in the video so you don't have to watch the entire thing again. Okay, and if you wish, you could also put another hole reinforcer on the back. You could also take some sort of trim and go all the way across the top. I like this smooth edge, but I also like trim. Okay, so I think I like using trim, and what I'm looking at, let me turn this so you can see it. I have these two. I have this black, which I really love. It's a chunky braid. And I also have this pink. I love them both, and I'm thinking about what about putting them together. So let me see what I even think that looks like, because this could actually cover the very top of that. I think I will. And so let me switch glues now. We are using trim, so we are going to go to Fabri-Tac. Fabri-Tac is fast adhering enough that you don't have to resort to using a hot glue gun just to get it to stick. Okay. So I'm thinking this is the back of my box, so I'm going to come down here and start here. I guess one thing I should do, I'm thinking about this, I want to make sure I'm fairly even. So let's measure and see where I need to adhere this. I think that's going to make me happy in the long run. It's a little extra work. The question is, do I want it all the way up against the edge of the box like this, or down a little bit? I think down just a pinch, which means that this needs to be about 1/4 of an inch in. So I'm going to take this and mark 1/4 of an inch in all the way around so that I know where to glue the pink thing. And the nice thing is these pencil marks will not be showing when I'm done. I'm going just under that pencil line, under meaning on this side of the pencil line. Oops, I'm on the front, so what I'm going to do is give myself extra so it can wrap around the back. This trim, while adding beauty, is also going to add stability because it's going to make a nice band around the whole thing that will kind of hold it together and hold in our glued pieces. Okay, now I'm going to go through and put the black on there, and I'm going to start on the back this time. So if you get used to using fabric glue, I think you're going to become a fan of it, as it really is amazing for working with trim. And this is actually the completed form. So you could put bows, you could put buttons, you could do whatever you want. You could put sentiments right there. And you can see how I decorated this one fully. And this one is simpler, but I love it. And I think that that's the style I'm going for. We have magnetized flaps. We have the whole reinforcer here. And all of our lips are reinforced like this. The lip here and the lip here are all reinforced. And we have a reinforced bottom. So it is a much sturdier, stronger tote for you. So this is tote number 2. This is tote number 1. I will give you a link down below to all the videos in this series, and I hope that has really inspired you to get your papers out. I didn't actually say how many sheets of cardstock it would take because it actually depends on whether you're using a unidirectional pattern like I did here. And this I did too because there's hearts on it. And so it's fun, and I really do love at least the lip right here. Feel free to use whichever pocket you want on the sides, this one or the one that I showed you like this. Thank you everyone for creating with me.